The following portion of Studio 512 is sponsored by Austin Symphony Orchestra. Okay guys, here's a combination you don't hear very often. Austin Symphony Orchestra has an upcoming performance called Beethoven and Coldplay. Here to tell us more about it is the conductor and composer, Steve Hackman, who we're really thrilled to have joining us virtually. Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. This is an interesting concept. I'd like to hear first a little bit about your background in music, kind of what inspired you to become a conductor and composer when you grew up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I started playing piano when I was 7 and then, took piano lessons growing up. And then in high school, got really involved with the choir and started to arrange for chorus, perform my own barbershop quartet, started to even conduct the high school choir. And that would prove very helpful later on in my career, since Beethoven Coldplay has 3 wonderful singers in it, in addition to the orchestra. And then in college, I studied piano performance and then conducting. I fell in love with the orchestra and I wanted to be, the next Leonard Bernstein was, he's my hero. But all the while I was, I loved popular music and I always wanted to create bridges between the two. Since I didn't grow up like in some household where you couldn't listen to couldn't listen to popular music. I always saw the parallels between the two and I always wanted to create that bridge.
And I think it's so important at a time like this where maybe there's less appetite for classical music than there's been in decades past. It's a really nice way to bring in younger crowds, right? Hey, I know Coldplay, I know some of their music, so it's a really neat idea. I've got to ask about how Beethoven worked his way into this and why you chose Coldplay as kind of the other side.
Yeah, so I'm always thinking about the similarities and the connections that can be drawn between the greatest artists of today and the greatest composers that we've ever seen. And in the case of Coldplay and Beethoven, they share what I call a universality. They speak to all of us. They speak to those huge, big humanist themes of love and loss and suffering and joy. Beethoven did it so magnificently in his symphonies and all his work. And then with Coldplay, you listen to a song like Fix You or The Scientist, and they hit you right in your heart. It feels like they're telling our own story. And that's what Beethoven does as well. And that's why I wanted to combine them.
Wow, okay, but I can't imagine that a lot of the instruments overlap, or maybe they do. So I would like to hear from you. What can the audience expect, when we attend from the merging of, as you mentioned, singers, we've got an orchestra and those 2 different styles.
Right. Well, so that's when the craftsmanship really comes in, just because Beethoven and Coldplay share that doesn't mean it's going to work. So my job as the sort of composer and creator of this is to deconstruct both musics into their essential elements and then figure out how to weave them back together. So this is really going to be Coldplay's music seen through the lens of Beethoven. Instead of the electric guitars and the drums and all that, you're going to have an orchestra. And then I play piano with the orchestra. But think of an orchestra. I mean, what a variety of colors and a diverse array of sounds we have, to use. So yeah, it's really Coldplay filtered through the lens of Beethoven. It's like a reimagination of his music, of their music, and hopefully, because of the singers who are, of course, delivering those vocal lines of Coldplay that the audience can really kind of relate to, and the orchestra, everyone comes away with a different appreciation or maybe a new realization about that music that they love.
Thinking of both of those very famous artists in a whole new light being brought together. I think it's so cool. Stephen, we appreciate you for your time, and we can't wait to welcome you here to Austin next weekend. Thank you so much. Guys, get tickets now at austinsymphony.org. The preceding portion of Studio 512 was sponsored by Austin Symphony Orchestra.